Hey everybody, today we're answering the question, what does God say about war? Well, the very first thing I think that God would say about war is that the government does have the right in certain cases to wage war. In Romans chapter 13, we see Paul tell us that one of the tools that God has given to the government is the sword. And that would mean that under the sword would fall the right and the responsibility in some cases to wage war. John the Baptist in Luke chapter 3, some Roman soldiers, come to him and they've become Christians and they want to know what should they do. And John doesn't tell them to leave the army. He doesn't tell them to quit. He tells them to be content with their pay and to not extort people. Basically, he tells them to do their job. And so as Christians, we don't need to be pacifists who would say that there is never a case for war. Unfortunately, in this sinful world, there are times where war is necessary. So on one side of the ditch with war would be to say that there's never a time for war. The government can't wage war. On the other side, then, the ditch would be to say that the government can wage any kind of war that they want because God has placed them in authority and they can do what they want. We know that that's not the case either, that the government is still subject to the Lord. And so this is a bit of a tricky thing then. So let's say you are a Christian in government or you're a Christian in the military. You have every right and responsibility to fight wars when it's necessary, but the question is, when is it necessary, right? So here's a list of things as Christians that we would say these would be kind of the qualifications for something to be considered a just war or a justified war. So the first one would be a war waged by a legal authority, right? So if my neighbor comes to me and says, "Hey, I don't like how things are going. Let's go start a war," that would not be correct, right? That's breaking the fourth commandment. As Christians, we wouldn't want to take part in any kind of rebellion against a legal authority. So a war has to be waged by the legal authority established by God. The second thing would be it's got to be for a just cause. Now, you'll notice with a lot of these things, in fact, all of them, this is a very gray area, right? What is a just cause and what is not a just cause? It's kind of hard to tell. Similarly, as a last resort, what does that mean? It's tricky. But all of these things have to do with wanting to respect the gift of life that God has given, right? And so the fourth one is with a reasonable probability of success. As a government, you wouldn't want to lead your people into a war in which they have no chance, right? You want to respect the gift of life. Similarly, you want to fight with proportionate means. You don't want to create more death than is necessary, and you'd also want to then lastly have regard for innocent lives. And so the fifth commandment really has a lot to say about this, that we want to respect the gift of life that God has given, and even in a case where a war is what is happening or is necessary, we still want to try to protect life as much as we possibly can. There's a lot of background noise today. That's all right. This is tricky, right? This is a hard thing. This is a lot of gray area. What makes a war justified or not? Finally, I think we would, in the sense, we'd give the benefit of the doubt to the government, right? As the authority that God has placed over us. If we're not sure if it's a just war or not, we would say, I'll err on the side of trusting the authorities God has placed over us. And this is why I think in 1 Timothy 2, Paul tells us to pray, right, for rulers to make good decisions about this kind of thing, because this is such an important thing and a difficult thing for us. And then, of course, too, as Christians, we want to keep in mind, what is our greatest enemy, the greatest battle? It's already been won for us against the devil, Satan, right, and his evil forces that seek to destroy us. Colossians 2 says that Jesus has crushed them, right, disarmed them, and made a public spectacle of them. And how did he defeat them? He did it by the cross, right? So the victory is yours. So I hope that answers some of your questions about what God says regarding war. God's blessings on your week.